Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Lydia Huston, and I'm back. Last week, I did take a break from reading Living A Course in Miracles, which is an excellent book, a classic that everyone who has ever studied ACIM has read. Um, Last week, I took a break because after a long hiatus in which I had the flu and was too debilitated to read or sit up straight, um, I I wanted to address illness last week, and I think I did address it in a way that people who haven't even studied ACIM might be able to understand what the view is on sickness, illness. Of course, just to recap, um, on a larger level, the separated mind created illness and death, and we can abolish them with our minds by switching over to the Holy Spirit's thought system, which is the thought system that this is a delusion and it's not real. So sickness isn't real, health isn't real, death isn't real, birth isn't real, none of it's real. The only reality is God and our oneness with God. So, that being said, I'd like to continue reading Living A Course in Miracles. Now, the last time I read from the book, we were on the chapter regarding the ego and particularly fixing other egos, which is something the Course advises against strongly. Fixing other egos is like judging and condemning others and giving them advice, unsolicited advice on how to fix themselves or fix their own egos. So we were talking about maintaining vigilance about undoing your own ego, not someone else's, but undoing your own ego. Now, the last section we were on was let him be what he is. And I will begin reading now. The passage I quote most often in lectures is, let him be what he is and seek not to make of love an enemy. Letting other people be who they are is one of the hardest things for us to do. Thinking we can fix other people means that we think we know how to fix them. If you attack error in another, you will hurt yourself. You cannot know your brother when you attack him. Attack is always made upon a stranger. A Course in Miracles. How many times do I have to get slapped in the face with reality in order to see it? This seeming Shenpa thing, which does not exist, can lead the mind down a mine shaft of righteousness. Anger is an interesting, although not so subtle, response. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and even annoyance is a veil drawn over fury. I'm say that again. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and even annoyance is a veil drawn over fury. If I am in the attack mode or the complaint mode, even the slightly annoyed mode, I'm blinding myself and I've still not learned my lesson. We use a great deal of vigilance to protect our egos. We use very little vigilance in the protection of our right mind. You can be as vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them. A Course in Miracles. There is a story in the Gospel of John of a woman taken in adultery. According to the law of Moses, the woman was to be stoned. They bring her to Jesus and ask him, what they should do. And Jesus says that the one who is without sin should cast the first stone. Beginning with the eldest, they drop their stones and walk away. Jesus then turns to the woman and asks, "Woman, where are your accusers?" To which she says, "Lord, there are none." Jesus then replies, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." In other words, go and do not continue to make the same mistake. It is the eldest who drops the first stone. The longer we've been here, the more we know we have not been able to transition through this world without error. The ego always speaks first. A Course in Miracles. Lesson 6 from the workbook says, I am never upset for the reason I think. Therefore, whether my brother is wrong or right, I have to ask the question, why am I upset? Here is a real opportunity for insight. Is there a glimmer of truth in the lesson my brother would have me learn? You cannot be betrayed, persecuted, or crucified. This is an interesting section. You have probably reacted for years as if you were being crucified. This is a marked tendency of the separated, who always refuse to consider what they have done to themselves. The message of the crucifixion is that it is not necessary to perceive any attack, even the meanest, as persecution. Who I am in truth, spirit, cannot be persecuted. Spirit cannot be destroyed. If I act as though I am being persecuted, I place a burden of guilt upon my brothers. If I imprison my brothers, I imprison myself. One of the silliest things anyone could say is, look what you made me do now. No one is responsible for how we act or how we feel. Living the Course, I see that I am the cause of everything I think and feel. Jesus was whipped, beaten, and placed on a cross to die, and he never condemned his accusers. He never projected back. Christ left us an example that we should follow in his steps. He did not sin, neither was guile found in his mouth. Who, when he was reviled, reviled not again. When he was tortured, he retaliated not, but committed himself to him that judges righteously. Oh, that was from the Bible, the book of Peter. If someone acts out of ignorance, they do not know who they are or what they are doing. As my old teacher of transpersonal psychology, Dr. Thomas Hora, used to say, ignorance is not a person. I could not have said, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss, unless I believed in betrayal. The whole message of the crucifixion was simply that I did not. The punishment I was said to have called forth upon Judas was a similar mistake. Judas was my brother and a son of God, as much a part of the sonship as myself. Was it likely that I would condemn him when I was ready to demonstrate that condemnation is impossible? Jesus is hanging on a cross, his body bleeding and dying. a jeering crowd yelling at him, and yet he does not see himself as persecuted. All we are to do is to follow his example in much less extreme cases. We are asked to teach only love in each and every situation, including the times when the world, defined as other people, seems to attack us. If my brother is acting out of fear, it doesn't mean I have to. Just as a parent can look upon a misbehaving child and see past the behavior to the innocence within, so God looks past our misconstruction, knowing the truth of our being. God has created us perfect. We may be dreaming a dream of imperfection, but it is just a dream. We cannot be hurt, and we do not want to show our brothers and sisters anything but our wholeness. A Course in Miracles. In the movie Dead Man Walking, the sister, the nun played by Susan Sarandon, did not deny what the criminal played by Sean Penn had done. She loved him and looked past his mistakes to the truth that lay within. As we teach, so do we learn. And if we react as though we are being persecuted, so do we teach persecution. We cannot teach persecution and find inner peace. What we are to teach is our own perfect immunity. We cannot be assailed any more than Jesus was. His is an extreme example. Can we not be more tolerant under much less extreme examples? It is not danger that comes when defenses are laid down. It is safety. It is peace. It is joy. And it is God. A Course in Miracles. That was from the Manual for Teachers. The Two Wolves. There is a wonderful Shenpa story from the Cherokee Indian tradition. An old grandfather said to his grandson, who came to him with anger at a friend, I too have felt a great hate for those that have taken so much with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down and does not hurt your enemy. It is like taking poison and wishing your enemy would die. It is as if there are two wolves inside me. One is kind and understanding and does no harm. He lives in harmony with all around and does not take offense. The other wolf is vengeful and full of anger. The littlest thing will set him into a fit of temper. He fights everyone and for no reason. He cannot think because his anger and hate are so great. Sometimes it is hard to live with these two wolves inside me. Both of them try to dominate my spirit. The boy looked into his grandfather's eyes and asked, "Which one wins, grandfather?" The grandfather smiled and said, "The one that wins will be the one I feed." I thoroughly disapprove of duels. If a man should challenge me, I would take him kindly and forgivingly by the hand and lead him to a quiet place and kill him. American author Mark Twain. Oh my God, Mark Twain had such an irreverent sense of humor. Take all Yenta and Shenpa kindly and forgivingly by the hand to a quiet place and there give it to the Holy Spirit for disposal. And then walk away and trust that God has done his part. If Spirit wants you to know the results of the miracle, he will show you. Otherwise, take it on faith and move along. Experience helps us to recognize a mistake when we make it again. When Shenpa comes, remember, this is a test. It is only a test. Ask Spirit to correct your desire to do it again, and then turn around, walk away, and return again another day when love rules the mind. If I see defensiveness coming, if I see attack thoughts arising, I know something has gone wrong with my thinking. Our brothers and sisters do indeed sometimes do hurtful things. The question is, how do I see what has been done? Do I see it as hurtful? Does my ego get plugged in, or can I see this as a call for help and take it to a higher level? Do I hit back, or can I sit back? We are not to permit abuse. Neither am I to respond with abuse. Those who test us are our best teachers and our friends. Those who make you return for whatever reason to God's solitude, be grateful to them. Worry about the others who give you delicious comforts that keep you from prayer. Friends are enemies sometimes, and enemies friends. Sufi mystic Jalaluddin Rumi. When any situation is out of our hand, it is time to place it in God's hands. What needs fixing isn't the world. What needs fixing is my perception of the world. Looking at the world with eyes of innocence instead of judgment, we see we cannot judge. Once we see how the ego plays its games, we realize we don't have to play. I need only to ask the Holy Spirit to correct my perception. There is a way of finding certainty right here and now. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams, whatever form they take, for you will lose identity in them. A Course in Miracles. Refuse to be a part of fearful dreams. It is that simple. If we teach anyone that they can hurt us, we teach ourselves that what is not of God has power over us. We would never attack another unless we believed that they have somehow taken the peace of God from us. If others have the power to take the peace of God from us, we gave them that power. So is the memory of God obscured in minds that have become illusion's battleground. Yet far beyond this senseless war, it shines, ready to be remembered when you side with peace. A Course in Miracles. Chapter 16. From selfishness to self-fullness. I'm nobody. Who are you? Selfishness is of the ego, but self-fullness is of spirit, because that is how God created it. A Course in Miracles. Prepare you now for the undoing of what never was. I love it when the Course states something so ambiguously. Let's review briefly. We think that we are separate, broken off, alone, capable of building our own world and thinking our own thoughts outside of the mind of God. Our minds are split. And while there is a part of us which remembers our home, which is heaven, That is not our everyday experience in this world. Indeed, in our dreaming of the world, we have forgotten that we have a mind which can bring us back to oneness, a state we never left. We dream that we are an ego caught in a body in space and time, and that makes us special. The self-made man. Specialness is the thought of sin made real. It is a false impression we hold about ourselves and a lack of faith in everyone except ourselves. It is a form of self-creation, a function I give myself. It is thinking that I am somehow exclusive, unique, better, or worse than others. Specialness is a concept of self, more highly cherished than truth itself. Specialness is the great dictator of the wrong decisions. It is the loss of peace. The more I defend my specialness, the less likely I am to be able to hear the voice for God. You are not special. If you think you are and would defend your specialness against the truth of what you really are, how can you know the truth? To see ourselves as special is to think of ourselves as better than or worse than others. Either way calls for judgment. We make ourselves special or we make someone else special. We are all equal members of one family. Seeking for difference, making ourselves better than or less than, is a form of separation. Specialness equals sin equals separation equals suffering. Suffering equals specialness equals sin equals separation. Ways of being special. This is a very good section because it tells you the ego's really intricate, tricky ways of allowing us to hold on to our specialness or our sense of specialness. Do not forget that any form of specialness must be defended and will be. Psychotherapy pamphlet, A Course in Miracles. There are myriad ways in which specialness is manifest. We see it most obviously in the search for status and prestige in the world, on our job, in our community, within our family, etc. Let's explore 4 of the more obvious ways specialness may obscure the truth. Your mind is filled with schemes to save the face of your ego, and you do not seek the face of Christ. The glass in which the ego seeks to see its face is dark indeed. How can it maintain the trick of its existence except with mirrors? But where you look to find yourself is up to you. Number 1, egotism. We're special because we're hot. There is a story about 4 Zen students who decide to go into a week of silent meditation together. They sit down. A couple of hours go by and one of them says, "I wonder if I remembered to turn off the stove." A second one responds, "You fool, you have spoken, and we have agreed not to speak." A third student then says, "What are you thinking about? Now you too have spoken." To which the fourth one says, "I am the only one who I am the only one who has not spoken." Nothing you do or think about or wish or make is necessary to establish your worth. Your ego is never at stake because God did not create it. Your spirit is never at stake because he did. A Course in Miracles. Everyone is aware of this particular distortion. We think that we are special because we make lots of money, we drive a fancy car, we are handsome, beautiful, and youthful, we have degrees after our names, we're a VIP. There is certainly nothing wrong with having money, looking and feeling good, etc. None of these things, however, make anyone special. And in them, there is no guarantee of peace of mind. These are external places where salvation may be sought in other people, in possessions, in special situations and events, and the self-concept we seek to make real. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. A Course in Miracles. Though he was not there at the time, I once stayed in one of the homes of a man who was, at one time, the most valuable player in baseball. His mother, who was my hostess, told me that he was a very unhappy man because he was not that year on a winning baseball team. As my friend Dr. Scott Olson so clearly says it, we must be willing to get rid of all false notions of ourselves. We must be willing to give up all self-created images. The Course encourages us to tell ourselves, my salvation cannot come from any of these things. My salvation comes from me and only from me. Me, in the above sentences, can be understood as me as the Son of God, the self reconnected with the whole. In lesson 84, we read the affirmation, I will worship no idols, nor raise my own concept to replace myself, capital S. Routinely, people discover that the life of a celebrity is onerous and burdensome once the novelty has worn off. American psychiatrist Dr. David Hawkins. The more highly defined our position with the world, the more difficult it may be to know the truth and thus be free. Famous people, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Princess Diana, Anna Nicole Smith, and Michael Jackson, each had a difficult time living in a world, which became for them increasingly artificial. It is said of Marilyn Monroe that she reached mythic status. Myth means not real. 2 months before she died, she did a tape-recorded interview for Life magazine called Marilyn on Marilyn. She talked quite frankly about her feelings concerning the image that had been made of her by Hollywood. She saw this image as a cardboard cutout, a cartoon character. She was clear that it was all a fantasy. Hollywood had created an image of a sex goddess, and it wasn't her. As she expressed it, I am not a sex goddess. I'm a person. Then she said, in the most poignant way, referring to Hollywood, and I let them do it. It was not, however, who she was. She was, she said, and she was crying when she said it, just Norma Jean. But Norma Jean had gotten lost in Marilyn Monroe. 2, we're special because of our opinions. Oh, this is going to be interesting. No one can judge on partial evidence. That is not judgment. It is merely an opinion based on ignorance and doubt. Its seeming certainty is but a cloak for the uncertainty it would conceal. Nothing is more conducive to peace of mind than not having an opinion. German scientist George Christoph Lichtenberg. We may also think of ourselves as special because of the superior opinions or attitudes we hold in relationship to each other and the world. Do you know the difference between a crow and a raven? Crows have the 4 long feathers that come off the tip of their wings. The feathers are called pinions. Ravens have 5 of these feathers instead of 4. So it is just as a matter of opinion. Our opinions are just opinions and therefore forms of separation. As Francis René de Chateaubriand, founder of Romanticism in French literature, said, "You are not superior just because you see the world in an odious light." Love makes no comparisons. A Course in Miracles, Workbook 195. Comparison is an ego ploy. Does quote unquote difference make a difference? Does it matter if we are Republicans or Democrats? Does it matter what church we go to? Does it have anything to do with heaven? Kai Chu, the great Zen teacher, was the head of Tofuki, a cathedral in Kyoto. One day, the governor of Kyoto called upon him for the first time. His attendant presented the card of the governor, which read, "Kitagaki, governor of Kyoto." "I have no business with such a fellow," said Kaichu to his attendant. "Tell him to go away." The attendant carried the card back with apologies. "That was my error," said the governor, as with a pencil he scratched out the words, "Governor of Kyoto. Ask your teacher again." "Oh, it is Kitagaki," explained the teacher when he saw the card. "I want to see that fellow." There are no doctors, no captain, no reverends, no governors in heaven. There are also no Methodists, no Buddhists, no Baptists, no Hindus, no Muslims, and no Jews. There are no ideologies, no philosophies or belief systems. That's all stuff we made up. Victimhood. Number 3. We may also think of ourselves as special because of a sorrowful, quote unquote, victim condition. Woe is me. Look at what has happened to me. The Course uncovers a lie hiding inside. We actually like to be crucified. We can all think of individuals who consistently find trouble with the world, ourselves included. The more guilt we carry around, the more we feel punished by external circumstances. Suffering is an emphasis upon what the world has done to injure us. As long as we are victims of something outside ourselves, we cannot see. Furthermore, we are making special the ones we say are persecuting us. Seeing ourselves as persecuted is a convenient way of not looking. If I feel persecuted, then I'm saying that someone else is responsible for the way I feel. It must be you. I point a finger and I say, I am a good person. You are not. My brothers and yours are constantly engaged in justifying the unjustifiable. A Course in Miracles. The quote unquote wine, WHINE, of the Month Club. When country western singer Hank Williams was asked by a radio disc jockey why he thought it was that he had so many #1 hits, Hank said, "Everybody feels good about feeling bad." When I quote that line in public lectures, it always gets a laugh. We laugh because it is true. George Bernard Shaw once said, "When a thing is funny, we should search it carefully for the truth in it." Sigmund Freud wrote a whole book on jokes, realizing the power of the unconscious content of jokes and the truth which often lay behind the joke. Just for fun, here are a few titles from some country western songs, each suggestive of the insanity of the ego. My wife ran off with my best friend, and I sure do miss him. I'm so miserable without you. It's almost like you were here. I liked you better before I knew you so well. How can I miss you if you won't go away? I keep forgetting I forgot about you. If you don't leave me alone, I'll go find someone who will. The ego seems to enjoy being mistreated, abandoned, and betrayed, as this is proof that we are innocent victims of what other people, the world, has done to us. We all think that we suffer more than other people do, which helps us to justify our projections against others. One of the most sobering aspects of the Course is the awareness that, on an ego level, we want to suffer. We actually enjoy wallowing around in our exquisite and most wonderful pain, all of which is proof that we are separate and isolated from the whole. We like being in relationships in which we are abused. We like to tell other people about our problems. We like to talk about our aches and pains, as this makes us special and gives us the right to complain. When the computer isn't working, when the doctor or the plumber tells me the situation is worse than they thought, what am I to do? Will I see myself as a victim, or can I rise above it? If I find myself thinking I am a victim, I can stop and ask, why? Asking myself that question creates space in my thoughts and gives me a choice point, a point at which it is possible to be free enough from the thoughts and experiences of the moment to choose love, Holy Spirit, instead of fear, the ego. The word beware is used only once in the entire Course, and that is in the sentence which says, beware of the temptation to perceive yourself unfairly treated. The wish to be unfairly treated is a compromise attempt that seeks to combine attack and innocence at the same time. The secret of salvation, the Course says, lies in the recognition that regardless of what is happening, you are doing it unto yourself. The you that had done this is the decision-making mind. This is why changing the mind changes everything. The answer to victimhood is the acceptance of responsibility. Accepting responsibility, we cannot project. We cannot blame someone else or our circumstances. Blaming only deepens our sense of guilt. If I really get lesson 31 from the Course, I am not a victim of the world I see. I'm going a long way in understanding the whole Course. no matter where we are, no matter what is going on, we are responsible for being here in this marvelous place at this marvelous moment. This is the only thing that you need do for vision, happiness, release from pain, and the complete escape from sin. All to be given you. Say only this, but mean it with no reservations, for here the power of salvation lies. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer that you are helpless in the face of what is done to you. Acknowledge but that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear. A Course in Miracles. We should be clear that while we are not responsible for what other people do, we are responsible for how we interpret what other people do. We can be victims or we can be free. I will pause here because we still have a fourth way of viewing ourselves as special. And I will get into it next week. But gosh, this is an amazing book. I thank God for John Mundy. There are a few teachers who really are able to interpret the Course for the masses and help other people find the understanding that they didn't get just from reading the Course. And John Mundy is definitely one of the most important ones. Thank you, John. I am going to sign off for now. I have to go see my mom. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I will be with you all again next week.
Thank you, Lydia. I'm sorry. I was just on the phone.